The Aztecs were one of the most powerful civilizations in ancient Mexico, thriving from the 14th to the 16th century. They built incredible cities like Tenochtitlan, which amazed European explorers with its floating gardens, canals, and busy marketplace. The city was a marvel of engineering with its roads, aqueducts, and temples rising from the middle of Lake Texcoco. Inside the city there stood the Templo Mayor, their most sacred temple, symbolizing their strength and devotion. But beneath the surface of this advanced society, there was a darker side that filled others with fear: practice of human sacrifice. For the Aztecs, human sacrifice wasn't just an act of violence, but it was a sacred duty, necessary to keep the universe going. According to their beliefs, the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world and ensure the sun's movement across the sky. The sun god, Huitzilopochtli, who was also the god of war, demanded a constant supply of human blood. The Aztecs believed that if they didn't offer these sacrifices, the sun would stop rising, crops would fail, and the world would fall into chaos. This belief was so deeply rooted in their society that it drove their military conquests and influenced their daily lives. They conducted sacrifices during major religious festivals, which were elaborate events filled with music, dance, and ritual. The whole Tenochtitlan would come alive with colorful banners, flowers, and the scent of burning incense. On the days of sacrifice, the streets of the city would be packed with thousands of people, all eager to witness the ceremony. Priests, dressed in feathered headdresses and jaguar pelts, would lead the victims up the steep steps of the Templo Mayor. The victims were usually prisoners of war, slaves, or even volunteers. As drums beat in a steady, intense rhythm, the crowd would fall silent. At the top of the temple, the victim would be laid on a stone, their chest exposed to the sky. The high priest, his face painted to look like the gods, would raise a sharp obsidian knife, its blade shining in the sunlight. With a swift motion, he would cut into the victim's chest and pull out the still beating heart, holding it up as an offering to the sun. The heart, considered the soul's seat, was placed in a ceremonial bowl, while the body was often rolled down the temple steps, a gruesome reminder of the gods' insatiable hunger. These sacrifices were more than religious acts. They were displays of power meant to instill fear and maintain control. The Aztecs used these rituals to show their strength and their favor with the gods. The scale of these ceremonies could be enormous. During the reconsecration of the Templo Mayor in 1487, it's said that over 20,000 captives were sacrificed in over 4 days, their bodies tumbling down the temple steps in a grim cascade. This display of devotion and military might sent a clear message to both their subjects and enemies. Resistance was futile. Constant need for sacrificial victims led to the Aztec practice of flower wars, which lead to the battles between neighboring tribes not to gain land, but to capture prisoners for sacrifice. These wars were both a show of their military skill and a way to fulfill their religious duties. For their enemies, they were a terrifying reminder of the Aztecs' power and their own potential fate. The psychological impact of these rituals extended far beyond the battlefield, creating a climate of fear that kept many of the Aztecs' neighbors in line. However, this reputation for brutality also led to their downfall. When the Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, arrived in 1519, they were shocked and fascinated by the Aztec practices. Initially welcomed into Tenochtitlan and mistaken by some as divine beings, the Spanish quickly realized the widespread resentment among the Aztec subjects. Cortés, a clever strategist, forged alliances with these disgruntled tribes, offering them a chance to overthrow their Aztec rulers. Armed with steel weapons, firearms, and horses, and aided by diseases like smallpox that devastated the local population, the Spanish and their native allies laid siege to Tenochtitlan. The city, once a symbol of power and wealth, fell in 1521 after months of brutal fighting. Its grand temples were torn down, and their stones were used to build Spanish cathedrals, marking the end of the old gods and the beginning of a new era. Fall of the Aztec Empire ended a civilization known for its remarkable achievements and complex society, but also remembered for its ruthless religious practice. The Aztecs' commitment to human sacrifice, meant to sustain the universe, ultimately contributed to their own destruction. The rituals that once kept them strong also made them vulnerable, creating enemies who allied with foreign invaders to bring about their downfall. Today, the ruins of their cities and the stories of their rituals continue to fascinate historians and archaeologists. Their art, mythology, and even the layout of modern Mexico City, which sits atop the ruins of Tenochtitlan, remind us of a civilization that was both advanced and brutal, both feared and admired. The story of the Aztecs is a powerful reminder of how belief, power, and fear can shape the rise and fall of any empire.